We should be getting good at this because this is probably going in person as of.
When? September?
Just, I am
21st.
I am recording this, so this is what's going to go online. So it's 5:38. So
Okay, sorry about that.
Right, Frank, we're gonna let everybody in.
Okay. The day went off well, thanks.
Oh, why is this?
Hey there.
Go.
Almost. I gotta stop coughing. People are coming in.
And my thing just went to Adobe Flash Player. Oh, man.
I think you're good to open the meeting, Frank.
Okay, Jen, we're all set? Okay. Good evening. This meeting is being held remotely as an alternate means of the public access pursuant to an order issued by the Governor of Massachusetts dated March 12th, 2020, superseding certain provisions of the open meeting law. You're hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Scituate in accordance with the open meeting law. Meetings will have a question and answer session following each public hearing. Abutters will, or interested parties will have the ability to raise their hand. We appreciate if you keep your total comments to less than 3 minutes. Thank you very much. Do we have an acceptance of the agenda? Before we do, I'd just like to add, I'd like to update everybody at the end of the meeting, maybe a little bit on some of our open space issues.
I make a motion, we accept the agenda with a discussion at the end about our open space issues.
And also, we're gonna start with one of our administrative items, A, quickly before we get into the public hearings.
Okay, thank you.
That's gonna be Adam Brodsky if he's on the call, so.
Great, thank you. Okay,
I can't
anybody else?
imagine.
So Adam, do we have Adam on yet?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Adam Brodsky, and I represent the DeRubos, and they have requested the ability to amend their order of conditions to address the situation at their property at 4 Cliff Estates Road. You may remember that you granted an order of conditions for an addition to an existing house, and the contractors actually took down the entire house, which needs to be reconstructed. It's going to be reconstructed in the identical footprint that you approved, with some minor architectural changes on the 3rd floor, but nothing is going to change on the ground. And so it's simply the same site plan, except we're showing a raise and reconstruction and not an addition. We also need to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals to correct this problem also. So I'm respectfully asking the commission to allow us to do this via an amendment as opposed to filing a new notice of intent with a new filing number, which is just going to confuse the registry and all of the parties. Thank you very much for agreeing to hear me early. I've got another matter in Hingham, and I appreciate the courtesy, and I'm happy to answer any questions. This is entirely consistent with DEP's policy with respect to amendments. Again, there's nothing changing on the ground. There are no additional impacts to this buffer zone project. They're simply going to reconstruct the existing dwelling within the same footprint.
Okay. Adam, before we pass this off to the members, are they keeping the foundation that's there now?
They're in the process of evaluating that, Frank. And so we got permission for the geotech folks to go out with the structural engineer to see what can be, what needs to be done. So they're in the process of doing that.
Okay. All right. Richard, do you recall this?
Very simple questions. I think, would we not need to get the revised plans for the house to be built before I presume we would have to do a new set of conditions, even though we don't have to have a whole start from scratch. So would we get a whole new set of plans prior to
construction.
So Richard, we already submitted the revised site plan
Okay.
to the commission.
I
So
may be
if-
looking at it. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. So if you're amenable to an amendment, and depending on how you want to handle notice, perhaps you could put this on your agenda for your next meeting. Just give me a public notice. I can get that published with Ms. Walke's assistance, and we can send out a butters notifications. We'll follow the same procedural requirements for a notice of intent, but we can get it done in an expedited fashion if the commission is willing to do that.
You answered my question. Thank you, Adam.
Yes, sir.
Doug?
No, I think I'm okay. I don't remember this well enough to be able to immediately recognize the difference in the extent of the proposed amendment, but if it's reasonably similar to what we had before, I think doing amendment, it's seems like a better approach than a whole new notice of intent to me. So I'm okay with that.
Thank you. Penny?
I can't remember if you have to notify the abutters with an
Yes.
amendment.
You do.
You do.
Yep.
Well, I want the abutters to know. I mean, this was a little crazy, Adam, what happened out here.
Yes, Penny, I have no explanation.
No, I know you don't. You weren't there, but it's, wow. I'm just very, very concerned because there was all kinds of other stuff done not too long ago. They wanted to do this, they did this, that, and then they come in with the last proposal, and then all of a sudden the house is gone. I'm just very concerned about the footprint. Are you using the same foundation? Frank already asked that. And I just, I really am going to defer to Amy whether this should be a NOI or an amendment. I'm not
Okay.
sure.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Jen?
I share a bunch of Penny's comments as well in terms of deferring to Amy. It's hard to truly, it feels like we almost need a clean slate because there's been so much that has been wrong, might not be the right word, but done differently than to plan previously. So I'm going to defer to Amy.
Okay. Andy's coming in a little late. Am I right on that?
I'm here, Frank.
Oh, okay. Hey, Andy.
Yeah, I think I share similar. I think if we can achieve similar goals with an amendment, that's fine. I know there was discussion of a fine, and we were sort of looking at the different options, and so I think maybe we should revisit that if we go to the amendment. But yeah, we'll see what others have to say.
Thank you. Brendan?
I actually don't have any additional things to add to what I kind of agree with what's been said before, so
Okay.
we'll just leave it at that.
All right, well, Amy can answer, and then maybe Adam can address some of those things. But Amy, what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are that an amendment would work. I mean, it's probably a difference in fees is the primary difference. I mean, because they're both new notice, or an amendment would require a new public hearing with a butter notification, and it would be subject to possible appeal. You know what I mean? It sets you up for that. But I mean, I don't think that this project there was even anybody really interested in it. So I just think that with the site, down to bare ground, again, you'll want to evaluate whether or not some stormwater improvements can be incorporated into the design. But otherwise, I mean, I'd go with an amendment. It's on administratively, it's probably not that more difficult to amend. We're just going to be taking in a new site plan, and probably O&M plan would be the big difference we'd be incorporating into these amended orders. But the date would stay the same. Like, they don't get a new issue date. So for them, actually, a new notice, they would bump out their extension, I mean, their date of their orders, so their valid date would stay a little bit longer, but I think that this project will probably be done by then, so.
Penny?
I just have one question. I don't know if I heard you right or not, Amy. With an amendment, because we don't do them that often, are we issuing new orders after we see the whole, it'd be the same orders? We'll wonder if
It's the same orders with, so the expiration date stays the same as the original orders. And then it's literally, it's the same orders with whatever you're amending is gonna be like struck out and replaced with the new items. And the file number changes to, 68 dash, ... A. So it gets submitted to DEP. So there's not really a lot of difference, honestly, but this is your decision to, you do get to decide whether or not you want it to be a notice or an amendment. It's still a single family home project. Now it's just a rebuild.
All right. I just am concerned that we might see something when they come in with the amendment and not like it.
Well, I think that this plan is what they're planning on coming in with, more or less.
Okay. More or less. That's my problem. Okay. Thank you, Frank.
Thanks. Adam, you want to address some of that?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Thank you. You control my ability to speak. So just to be clear, we've already.
That's by design, Adam.
Yes, I understand. I wish I had that feature in other facets of my life. But in any event, we've already submitted this request to DEP pursuant to their policy. This is the plan that we're proposing, and again, it's the identical footprint. This is a buffer zone project. There are going to be no impacts to the wetland, which is down gradient, and obviously we're open to any additional conditions that the commission wishes. Just so you know, there's no right of appeal of an amendment. So if you deny the amendment, we'd have to do a whole new filing. But it's just going to be more confusing to have two filings. We have two DEP numbers, two certificates of compliance. It's just so much easier to work off of the same existing orders. And again, to the extent that the commission wants to consider enforcement, you always have that right. We're just talking about what we really need to do procedurally to permit the project. So again, it's more expediency. It actually doesn't, in some respects, doesn't work to the advantage of the homeowners, but we thought it was the most expedient way to get this resolved. I still think that it's appropriate.
Adam, when are they going to know their plans for the foundation? How soon will we know that if we're going to do this amendment, we should be putting everything out there, including whether there's going to be a new foundation or removal of a foundation?
Understood. I don't know the answer to the question, Frank. We did get permission from Amy as well as the building department to do some minor destructive work out there to understand what the soils are beneath portions of that foundation. So I should have that information this week. The clients want to get this done quickly. I mean, this was an unpleasant surprise for them. They didn't think that they'd be shut down and have to go to both the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Conservation Commission. So they're not happy. And we've been instructed to try and get this done as quickly as possible and get them working as quickly as possible because their contractor's got a window here to do the work. So we're motivated to get this thing done.
Okay, well, I guess, we don't want to have these things keep popping up. If we amend these orders and it's to build on the existing foundation and then they come back and say, oh, we're going to take that down now. I really think
so I don't want to waste the commission's time. If we're not prepared for the next meeting, I will get right back to Amy and say that we are not prepared, and I will ask for another date that's convenient for the commission. because I don't want this to come into you in pieces. It's the best I can do.
Okay. So if, just thinking this through, this is not like a new construction on an undisturbed area. There's already an existing house with existing impervious surfaces. I don't remember if there was additional impervious surfaces, if there was a reduction. Amy, do you have any recollection on that?
My recollection is there was not a significant increase in impervious, and they were incorporating pervious, like the driveway was going to be pervious to make sure they kept those numbers down.
Yeah. So, the question was raised whether the applicant should be fined or what other implications they should have for not following the orders. I guess my question would be, is there any ways that we can improve the site, protect the marsh? I mean, that's what we're looking at here is a buffer to the salt marsh. So I guess if I had my druthers, I'd wonder if there were some additional improvements that could be made on the site to protect the marsh or improve the quality of the marsh or something in that area. And maybe being a little bit selfish, but if we find them, that goes into the general account in the town. And if they do site improvements or something to improve the quality of the marsh, that's a benefit to the commission.
I'm happy to obtain some mitigation plan to see if there are appropriate improvements to the marsh. And I'm sure they're willing to do offsite mitigation if the commission has a project that they want to tackle. I'm sure the clients would be open to that.
Can we circle up one more time with commission members, just to make sure we're all clear? Richard, do you have anything else?
No, I still feel strongly. I don't have a real problem with it being an amendment, but I agree that we need the site plan finalized and complete. And yeah, some mitigation I think would be appropriate.
Thank you. Doug?
Yeah, Amy mentioned, maybe some, and I apologize, I don't remember the extent of the details we had there before, but she mentioned some, runoff protection. I think my only interest would be this is just the same as the original application. That's to protect the wetlands. And if nothing's been done on that bank, I thought I remembered some revegetation proposals along that bank, but maybe I'm thinking of a different.
I think it was the next house down, but.
Was that what I'm thinking of?
Maybe
but
yeah.
Yeah, so I would look at the bank itself and see if there's mitigation there that would be appropriate or needed, and that would be a good time to do it. But if they could, just make sure that while they're doing this, but I agree. Instead of, I'm not a big fan of just a fine. When there's something better that could be done, like, actually improve that. And that's the only thing that comes to my mind right off is that it's a fairly steep bank that was constructed. And so runoff there is something that I would want to look at the most. So if that's answering the question, that's what I would be in favor of looking at as far as mitigation goes, is let's see what we can do in the immediate constraints of the property and the lot and the construction right there. And
okay. Penny?
I'm sorry, Frank.
Yeah, go ahead.
Frank.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at a mitigation plan that was prepared and submitted, I believe. It shows plantings and improvements to the coastal bank, as well as the use of pervious pavement that's associated with the project. So you may have already addressed mitigation in the first round, but we'll explore more.
I thought I recognized that.
Good memory.
Okay.
Okay. Where am I at? Jen?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Andy?
Yeah, I'm good.
Brendan?
I'm good.
Okay, so if anybody's got any suggestions on some additional mitigation or whatever, why don't you shoot it to Amy, Jen, and we can forward that on to Adam. And we'll see this as an amendment. Is that, are you in agreement on that?
Yep.
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 Okay. Do we
Yeah,
need any
and-
official vote on that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
So they'll be back in with,
You're gonna actually hear it
yeah.
after we advertise it. But also, Adam, I had brought up infiltrators for roof runoff,
Yes.
and to the extent that they can incorporate that on the site, they should. Which they're already, the project manager had already said that was not a problem. So
Yes, no, understood. I've got the message loud and clear. And again, if there's an off-site mitigation project the commission's interested in, please let me know. I don't know how much more can be done on that bank. It's not a large area.
Right. Okay. We'll take that into consideration.
And thank you again for your courtesy. I really appreciate it.
Have fun at your next meeting.
Thank you.
Night, Adam.
Good night. Thank you.
thanks, Adam.
Okay, 250, 280 Driftway, well 18 treatment plant modifications, Town of Scituate. On June 7th, 2021, 5:30 meeting at Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application in Town of Scituate for work related to the installation of an above ground and below ground piping to convey the treatment wastewater, as well as the installation of an above ground settling tank at dwelling location at 250 and 280 Driftway, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the virtual meeting will be available on the agenda posted on the website. So do we have somebody from Ty and Bond?
Yes, it's Charles Gore. I'm gonna unmute him.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Charles Gore. I'm an engineer at Ty and Bond. We're working with the Town of Scituate Department of Public Works and the Water Division on this project. And also joining me at tonight's hearing is Rick Camden, who is a wetland scientist and helped with the preparation of the filing documents for the notice of intent. Just want to give a brief overview of the project. The project is for construction of a backwash water disposal system for the Town of Scituate well 18B water supply well. The water supply well is actually located on the golf course driving range. The well water is pumped over to the landfill site on the adjacent parcel where the groundwater water supply is basically filtered to remove some manganese, and then also prior to going out into the water distribution system, it's also chlorinated for disinfection, and also there's some pH adjustment for corrosion control in the water system, so that to comply with the lead and copper rules, so you're not leaching out anything out of the water distribution pipes in the town. The town operates the well 18B system on a seasonal basis, so this is a temporary seasonal operation, generally from June to October. Previously, they were utilizing a frac tank, but in terms of operational considerations, the town wants to discharge to Hadley Pond on a daily basis. So typical flow range would be typically 10,000 gallons per day. The town did apply for a NPDES general permit for potable water treatment facilities to discharge to Hadley Pond, which is a Class B water body. That's maybe one of the type of MVDSE permits you probably don't see too often at the commission, but it's a mechanism for specifically designed for discharge of backwash waters in treatment facility waters and treatment plants to receiving water bodies, which can range from tributaries to reservoirs or reservoirs themselves. In this case, it's Hatherley Pond, which again is a Class B waterway. As part of the filing, the resource areas were delineated. There is an area, you can see the blue shading on the screen there, that there is a land subject to coastal storm flowage, which was one of the triggers for the requirements for the notice of intent filing. So all the work result in no net fill within the land subject to flooding, so there is no compensatory flood storage that's proposed or anything. Basically, the work on the parcel and the resource area will be an underground, small diameter, 3-inch HDPE pipe that, again, as noted in the project title, would flow to an above ground settling tank to remove some solids in the tank prior to discharge to comply with the permit. And then also there'll be a dechlorination system to make sure that there's no residual chlorine that's being discharged to the pond. The discharge is going to be the settling tank's basically size, again, to remove the solids, and then from the tank it flows out to basically an 8-inch HDPE pipe and to an existing ditch adjacent to the pond. As part of the filing, we are proposing to include some 6-inch diameter stone just as a protective measure against any potential erosion. During the original submittal, we did plan to leave the area undisturbed, but in response to some additional information requested by the conservation agent, we added in a small 20 square foot area of 6-inch stone within the existing ditch just to make sure there wouldn't be any erosion that would occur due to the discharge. So basically,
Thanks. So it was a little bit hard to hear some of your presentation. I'm going to open up to the members. If somebody didn't get a piece that they wanted to, ask for that, and whatever you have for questions. Doug?
It was a technical thing. It was not a real clear audio, but I got the gist of it. Even if you repeated some of those details, it's not going to help me a lot. So, but no, I get the gist of it, and I think it looks like an improvement for the water system. So I don't think I have any questions beyond that.
Thanks. Penny?
No, the only thing I did want to ask, that purple triangle, is that the actual well at the end of the pond?
I'll jump in on that. This is Rick Hanneman. The purple triangle is the discharge point. So there's a section of pipe, that like black dash line in this view shows the new pipe to be installed. There's a section of pipe that's sort of an older drain line in the existing parking that is going to be tied into, and that's the outlet of that existing pipe. In the view that's open on our screen, it's a green circle with you can't really see it, but it's a yellow water tap that's over in the far right side of the image, and it has like a number that's like 4 something 12G. That's the well. So like the work is outside of the wellhead protection area, but the pond is within it, so that the water that's discharged back to Hatherley Pond can re-infiltrate back into the area that the water, the area of influence of the well.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Jen?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Andy?
Okay right now.
Brendan,
I have no questions.
Amy?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a project that, you know, we've ever seen before. I've ever seen quite a project quite like this, but not all of it's within our jurisdiction or within the buffer. It's a municipal project of which the town is going to see great benefit when we eventually put well 18B back online and get it as part of the water distribution for the town. So, I mean, it's definitely, a really important project. And I know I've reviewed part of your packet included sign-offs from DEP with respect to like water quality concerns that you might have, and, temperature, pH, that type of thing. This figure doesn't really show us the detail of the discharge itself. Just wanted to be sure that, it's not going to create like a sedimentation thing. And also like, what is it something that's consistently moving? Is it just like, 4 hours and it stops? It's intermittent, that type of thing? Those would be questions that I might have for Ty and Bond. DEP had no comments. I do think it's approvable with a set of orders.
Okay, this is Charlie Gore again. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Right. So the discharge is intermittent. It only occurs when the filters are being backwashed. So typically the water supply is running through the filters, and then periodically, about once per day, once it's under operation, the filters are backwashed for a period of about 20 minutes. And at that time, the flow would go down to the settling tank. And again, the settling tank's designed to remove most of the solids, so there won't be any appreciable or noticeable.
Charlie, your audio is still kind of rough. I don't know why. It's something to do with your mic, but why? I mean, I can try to jump in. I'm not,
that would be helpful.
Engineer, but yeah. So
yeah, that'll be good.
The point of the because of the treatment process, the treatment system itself doesn't generate water consistently. So that's partly why this is not like a constant trickle at the same rate, but it is intermittent. And then the second part of what makes it intermittent is the settling tank side. So the design of the system is set up so that there's enough residence time in the tank with the baffles for the solids to settle out of the water. So it will be like once the water gets to a certain height in the tank, it'll discharge to a certain depth in the tank, and then the flow will stop again. So hopefully I think that's the second question. And the first question, the outlet, Charlie noted, and we had sent information after the submission, and we had received comments from you that we did modify the outlet to include a stabilized stone pad. So that I think your first question was kind of like ensuring that the discharge wasn't going to cause any sedimentation. And we debated about trying to minimize disturbance, and that's part of the reason why we're using that existing pipe, is because that's the closest we are to a resource area. We're trying to minimize disturbance in the vicinity of the resource area, but chose for the just to be sure, we chose to add a stone stabilization at the discharge point so that we would avoid any kind of scouring and sedimentation in that channel at that point where the water flows out of the pipe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's not going to have any impact on Hadley Pond, any detrimental impact on.
Right, it should be a benefit. I mean, the pond goes up, the water level in the pond will go up and down based on in part the operation of the well. Returning that water back to the pond should, it's not a very large volume relative to the pond, but it's, if anything, it's a slight benefit as opposed to any type of an impact.
Anybody else? Do we have anybody in the audience?
Interested? Raise hand function.
I don't think we got anybody. You want to make a motion?
I make a motion to close.
Can you make a motion to issue too? We want to do close and issue
I
on
make
this.
a motion to close and issue.
Ms. Penny, do we have a second?
Second, Andy.
Second from Andy. All in favor? Richard,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Brendan.
Yes.
Great. Okay, we're good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Thanks. 17 Border Street. What's that? On June 7th, 5:30 PM, the Town Hall, Situate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Situate Code of Bylaws and Section 32050 of the Town of Situate Stormwater Bylaw regarding the application of Kyle Christensen to construct a single-family home, pool, patio, driveway, landscaping, and associated utilities at location at Lot 17 Border Street, Scituate, Mass. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the virtual meeting will be available on the agenda posted on the town website. And we have someone from Merrill Engineering.
Yes.
Yes,
Good evening.
Deb Keller.
Good evening.
I'll get started.
Sure.
I believe with me is Carl Christensen, the applicant is on the line, as well as Sean Papich, landscape architect, working with us as well. I know there's lots of color on this plan, so I'm going to start with the resources that we have on site. They were delineated by Brad Holmes of ECR and re-reviewed in March of 2021, again, just prior to us submitting this proposal. So in the upper left-hand corner is of the plan that we see on the screen is the Gulf River. Associated with the Gulf River, the next line is sort of a thin magenta line. That is the mean high water. And off of that are our two 100-foot inner riparian and 100-foot outer riparian riverfront delineations. The next resource is a thin blue line, which kind of runs along that stone wall. And it has wetland flags SM, say 105 through 114 that we can see on this plan. That is the delineation of the salt marsh associated with the Gulf River. And the green dashed lines are the 50-foot buffer from the salt marsh and the 100-foot buffer from the salt marsh. And then we have the limit of the FEMA flood zone, AE zone through FEMA, which is an elevation of 12. That's the thicker sort of yellow line, dashed line. And the thinner yellow line is the demarcation of the Scituate Floodplain and Watershed Protection District. It's elevation 10 mean sea level, which is converted to elevation 9.2 on the 1988 datum. It is also the demarcation of the Salt Marsh and Tineland Conservation District limit. So those are the resources that we have on site. We are looking, the property is approximately 17 acres in total. It has frontage out on Border Street, and the property is currently in Chapter 61A agriculture, and we would like to maintain that use as well. And looking into the location of the proposed home, obviously we would like to enjoy the aesthetics of the Gulf River, and working with the topography and challenges of the site constraints, resources, ledge that's on the property, and trying to maintain the open field areas to maintain that agricultural use on site. The house is, let's see if I can track this down. It's approximately a little over 3,000 square foot footprint with a 3-bay garage, has a pool house overlooking the Gulf. The driveway does enter from Border Street, loops through on the bottom right-hand side. You can see it coming through in between the two large ledge outcrops, coming into the front of the house with and entering the front, which is sort of fit in between the ledge outcrops that we have. And the house itself, to comport with the existing topography, will be the first floor elevation will be at grade at the driveway entrance. And on the Gulf side will end up being a walkout at the basement level so that we can match grades as it drops down to minimize alteration, grading, et cetera, on the site. We do propose a curb entrance with a retaining wall break at Border Street, traveling in right on that bend of the driveway. You can see that hatched area. That is a proposed rain garden, which will capture the majority of the driveway to treat and attenuate runoff from the driveway. And as we move into the main house location, we are working, and we work very hard to stay within the 100 to 200 foot riverfront area. And the entire property has over 200,000 square feet within riverfront, and therefore the maximum alteration would be 10%, approximately 20,000 square feet. We are proposing 17,825 square feet of alteration. So we do meet that 10% or below the 10% alteration proposed. We are proposing some removal of the ledge in the location of where the garage is. Again, we located the garage in that location so that we could minimize the amount of ledge removal. We don't have to go down. There's no full basement, obviously, under the garage. With that, obviously, we'll have some nice boulders, hopefully, or that we're looking to reuse on the site. And behind the proposed pool, we do have a stone retaining wall so that we can limit alteration and grading, again, around the home itself, rear lawn area. We are proposing 2 roof dry wells and subsurface infiltration chambers, one in the front yard, one in the rear yard. The front yard will collect a small portion of the driveway entrance as well as roof runoff. And the chamber system in the back will collect roof runoff only. We do have a small portion, which is mainly the pool area. It's about 3,638 square feet, which is within the 100-foot buffer to the salt marsh. The closest we're working to that resource is the stone wall, which is 65 feet from the salt marsh. So we're staying out of the 50-foot buffer to the salt marsh. And there is a small portion, I believe, 436 square feet of fill within the land subject to coastal flowage. Again, no impact because it is a coastal resource. We have completed a stormwater design for the site and submitted that. We did have a peer review process started, and I believe we've addressed all the comments thus far with respect to the stormwater. We have filed with Board of Health. As you can tell, it is a pumped system from the house. We have put the system out in the front field. We've tried to tuck it in the corner and grade it so that we can maintain the field and look of the field and not have a mound out front and maintain that aesthetics of driving down Border Street. That septic design has been submitted to the Board of Health, so we're waiting for their review. We have filed with planning and obtained a scenic road permit to break the stone wall to create the driveway entrance. And we did have, I believe Steve Ivas is on, I'm not sure if he's going to speak, but he's started to review the resources on site. And we did have a site walk, so that process is ongoing at the moment. I do believe that everyone is comfortable with the salt marsh lines that are within the proposed work area. Sean, I don't know if you have any additional information for landscaping component?
Sean Papich, Landscape Architecture, 222 North Street in Hingham. Deb, you did a pretty good job of summarizing everything. I don't know how much there is for me to say at this point. I think you covered pretty much everything here. The big piece that I might at least state that any of the work that we noticed when we were out on site with even earlier today, Carl and I were out there looking at some of the existing trees, and one of the things we noticed is how thick the briar is. Most of the plant material you'll find in the area around the house, in the house and the Gulf River, tends to be upland type species. It's a lot of existing white pine, existing oak, some blueberry, clethra, but a tremendous amount of briar. And one of the things we're hoping to do is, even in areas that are outside of our area where we're proposing to build, we would like to still do a pretty strong renovation of some of the landscape treatment there. So some of the existing briar we'd like to remove and replace with a lot more of the low bush blueberry that's present there, as well as hit it with a really heavy amount of fruiting shrubs, all natives, of course, blueberry, spice bush, viburnum, inkberry, all of our favorite ones you'd expect to find. So that's something we really want to do as a mission, to really kind of treat it as a rehabilitated landscape down toward the river, because it is so thick with the briar and some of the other invasive species. Otherwise, you nailed it really well when you talk about trying to continue the feel of the agrarian sort of landscape coming off of Border Street. And one of the options we're looking at doing is potentially do a little orchard remnant coming in from Border Street. And with the property that's so large, it's 15 to 17 acres, and really only looking to build on one very, very small area of it, is something that I want to at least say that I value a great deal with Carl, who's proposing this work, the new owner, and he's really taking stewardship to another level, and I just appreciate that a great deal. With that, I will leave it back to you, Deb.
Thank you. I think we're open to any questions, Amy?
Yeah, I have Steve Ivas and also Janet Bernardo from Horsley Witten, both on the call. So I was hoping maybe we could give them a chance to chime in on what they've looked at. Steve, you can go first.
Sure, be happy to. Steve Ivas, Ivas Environmental. I took a look on March, let's see, let me go back in my book here. It was 28 March at the salt marsh line at a relatively low tide. And the salt marsh line looks fine all the way up from numbers 1 to, I think it was near number 30. Then I went with Ms. Keller up the brook a little bit ways. Haven't completed the looking at the BVW on the, let me see, that would be the right-hand side of this particular plan. But I had no trouble with any of the locations there. The one comment I would say is that I found many of the flags not really very visible, and some were just stubs. The flags should be up throughout the construction period, so I think they should be replaced. And perhaps, I keep saying this in many conservation commissions, just add the little aluminum foil tags to the flag locations. They can be found 10 years hence, okay? It takes about 30 seconds to put the little aluminum foils in, you know? So that's the first large comment I would make. And then just hearing Mr. Papich speak about the greenbrier, I would like to remind the commission that is a native species and provides really, really excellent habitat function, okay? So I would suggest that Mr. Papich prepare a plan that shows where he would like to address the greenbrier, the native greenbrier, and we keep him to that plan. That's just my 2 comments for the present.
Amy, if it's okay, I can address Steve's first comment. We have gone back out and reestablished the salt marsh line. So that is in.
I can address the second one if you'd like to. This is Sean Papich again. We can certainly show on a plan what our intentions are for the site for proposed removal of greenbrier and replacement with other native species in those areas.
Wonderful, wonderful.
We do believe that there are areas where it would be appropriate for there to be a percentage of it removed and replace it with something that's even of higher wildlife value.
Okay.
There's quite a few options for that.
Great.
Thank you.
And from Horsley Witten?
Oh, Janet, yes.
Hi, this is Janet Bernardo from Horsley Witten Group, professional
Janet.
engineer. We were brought on to review the stormwater management for the property. So we had prepared one letter, which I have there, it's dated May 7th, I believe. And we were waiting to hear about, the applicant has responded to that letter, and we were waiting to hear that the wetland flags were settled before we finished our review. Though most of the comments really were minor kind of technical comments that needed additional information. I have a couple of questions. One, for the commission, there is a subsurface infiltration system in the rear of the proposed house that does not have a soil test pit in the footprint, and the one that's close by isn't too far away, but the bottom of the system, it does not correlate to the groundwater that was found or the models that were found in that test pit. So the applicant is asking to have a condition of approval to do, we recommended doing another test pit in the footprint to confirm the estimated seasonal high groundwater elevation. The applicant is asking for you to condition that. So I kind of wanted to hear the commission's feelings on that particular system, just because the test pit that is closest is slightly lower. And so trying to understand if that's a reasonable request, or will the commission prefer to see that test pit done prior to closing this hearing?
I'd ask Deb to comment on that first, and then we can ask some commission members.
Sure. So the subsurface chamber system in the rear does straddle 2 test pits. I don't know if you can see where the subsurface chamber is, right to the left of the patio area. There is a test pit to the left that is relatively close. It is slightly down grade elevation wise. I believe this test pit had good material, and the one that's to the right, we did find some silt material in it, and didn't go down as deep. We can do two options. We could either reconfigure the roof system to overlay over that test pit, or go out and do another one. It's about 20 feet away, so I was looking at it from the aspect of when we get down in there and start moving around, we could we do have some flexibility of shifting that around to an appropriate location if need be. But we can do it either way, whatever the commission would prefer.
I don't want to keep jumping in on others, but did you encounter much ledge there, Deb?
Not in the test pits, no.
Okay. So you don't anticipate having to shift that around much?
Not the subsurface chamber system, no.
Okay.
And the one in the front yard is actually in some fill, so we have more flexibility with that location, vertically anyways.
Okay.
And we don't have a preference. We're just kind of wanting to make sure that the commission understands that there is possibility that because there isn't a test pit right in the footprint, it could shift, which means the applicant would need to come back with a minor modification or something if that happened. And that's, I think, you know, every commission has a different opinion on how critical it is to have a test pit done right in the footprint. And since the two test pits adjacent to it differed slightly, I'm not comfortable saying to you, oh, it's fine. So I'm just kind of giving you a heads up on that. My other question that I'm hoping the applicant can clarify a little bit is we were concerned about the runoff, like the rain garden has an overflow and it kind of goes down a hill towards the gravel driveway, and it just looks like it's going to just run right around that driveway towards the barn. They've responded that they're comfortable that that is not going to happen, but I guess I just wanted to talk about it out loud for a minute compared to reading their response and understand what that gravel drive actually looks like, and to be comfortable that it's not going to be a problem. It just looks like it's going to just make a mess.
Sure, sure, Deb Keller. I can add a little bit. Apologize. We can add some spot shots to show that that gravel driveway does pitch towards the wetland behind the barn, and the rear barn is actually what they call a pole barn, and so it's wide open. There is no true occupancy in that barn location. It's more for storage of equipment, hay bales, etc.
It doesn't matter if water
No,
hits the foundation of it. It's open.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That helps.
We can add some spot shots too, so to verify the grading in that area. I didn't realize they weren't shown on the plan because that's what I was looking at when so I can add that so that we can.
Great. And majority of their other comments were asking for some clarification, which their responses made sense on, and making sure that all of the calculations match the plans. So we will finish our review if you're comfortable that the wetland line is as shown. It will not be changing, which I heard from Steve that it seems okay. We will complete our review.
What I've looked at, let me just clarify. What I've looked at is mostly the salt marsh line. I haven't looked at the freshwater wetland line yet. But my guess is that it'll probably be pretty good, knowing who did the work, okay?
Okay, so I guess I know we were asked to kind of hold and wait till you finish your review, but if the commission would prefer us to finish ours, we can do that.
Steve, when will you be reviewing the
it'll not be very soon, within the next couple of weeks. Sorry, Frank. It's just, as you know, May and June are the hell months for wetland scientists.
Sure.
Just to clarify, Deb Keller again, the BVW that Steve needs to still look at, we are not within any of the resource or buffer to that wetland. It is shown on the plan because we tried to be as complete as possible with the site and showing all the resources on the property. But the red line on the property is the limit of work. And as you can see on the right-hand side, we are well outside of that resource, as well as the buffer.
Agreed entirely.
So you don't see any problem with them finishing up the stormwater review then?
Well, so.
I do not.
Oh, go ahead, Amy.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, there's a lot going on here, right? And we are well underway with both the stormwater review, which a lot of that is, not within conservation jurisdiction per se, but really is under the Scituate stormwater bylaw. And, we do want the plan to be accurate or otherwise duly noted on what's not confirmed, but it will be the plan of record so that for future filings, we want it to be accurate. Like, for instance, I mean, we agreed to hold the opening of the hearing tonight just to get this out there and get initial thoughts from the Conservation Commission and just let you know how far down the line we are with review, but we were not expecting to close this tonight. Like, for instance, we don't have anything in writing from Steve. He agreed to be on this call just to kind of verbally, give you some assurances that, things are looking like this is what the project will shape up to be. And also Janet, same thing, that looks like we're in good shape for the stormwater. But yeah, there's a little bit of detail to still be ironed out. And I think we wanted to probably flush out, like what kind of buffers, like permanent buffers, do you want established and how would you establish them? Like, for instance, the 100, is a very important marker on this site for the inner and outer riparian, and, permanent, like, boulders, or not boulders, but large rocks would be maybe a good way to establish that line. And then also, just if the applicant is going to go in, ask for permission to go in to these buffers to any extent for like vista pruning or other path reasons or something like that, maybe we could at least have the discussion. But I think
or Greenbrier pruning, for example.
yeah.
Yes.
So at this point, I think we could go through the commission, Frank.
Okay, but all right, well, Janet's question was, is it okay for her to go ahead and wrap up her work?
I think for Janet, I want her to be able to comment on the final revised plan. And I don't think she's got that much more to do. So probably we'll just wait to get everything in order. I mean, we could, okay, but we could note that, like take out the flags that haven't been reviewed, but then it's, I don't know.
I have no problem waiting. I just want to make sure that I'm not messing up anybody else's schedule.
Oh, I think that the applicant would want to know if there's anything else there. But all right, we'll go to the members and we can circle back to that. So Penny?
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Like what I see, I'm with Steve, and I'm a little concerned from the house down to the river. Greenbrier, no, you don't want it all there, but I would like to see a substantial amount. The bunnies need a place to hide from the hawks, and that's one of the best spots. I would like to know, are you cutting down any mature trees between the house and the marsh, the river, whatever you want to say? And I do want to see a planting plan of what you plan on doing from the house down. The rest of it, I think, looks pretty darn good. I love where the septic system is, the leaching field. I think they did a great job. So that's my only concern, is from the house down, what they plan to do.
Thanks, Penny.
Thank you.
Jen?
Yeah, I would share a lot of Penny's sentiments. I'm also curious about mature trees, not only between the house to the marsh, but just what else is being removed from the rest of the property.
Andy?
Yeah, I think similar sentiments. Definitely, the proposal to replace sort of mature, healthy native plants with new ones is would want to look closely at. But I think otherwise my comments have been captured.
Brendan?
Yeah, again, echoing the previous comments, I'd be interested again in the greenbrier plan and plantings as well. But nothing, I have no additional questions beyond that.
Thank you. Richard?
Same thing. Nothing else to add at this time.
Okay. And Doug, I assume you're out of this?
Yeah, something sounds very eerily familiar in the engineer's voice there. I think I should probably recuse myself from this one.
Okay. Amy, do you want to add anything at this time?
No, I mean, I don't think so. Let's see if there's any abutters who want to raise their hand.
Okay. Do we have anyone in the audience for this?
Mr. Chairman, this is Steve Ivis. Might it be useful for the engineer or the applicant to actually note on the site the trees, the mature trees that will be taken down inside the 200-foot riverfront area, for example, just so and the commission take a look at them, just so they understand exactly what's happening on the site? If I were a commissioner, I would want to know that, and I would want to see the locations of those trees. Just so you know how many, I'm not sure about your current tree replacement policy. In Milton, where I play agent, we have a DBH to DBH replacement now. So diameter breast height to diameter breast height. So if you've got a tree of 75 inches, you replace it with 25 3-inch trees, for example.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Sure.
Frank, I would think that went right along with the planting plan.
Yeah.
Well, so Deb, I'm just looking at the existing conditions and I don't see, no vegetation like that was shown on the plan. Am I right?
We showed a tree line, so we did not locate the trees. We do have some of the ones, like there's a 30-inch existing tree that we're maintaining near the existing gravel driveway that was sort of standalone. So we have picked up some of those, but we can go in and flag and identify the trees that are being removed now that we know the proposed limit of work, so that can be seen in the field.
Okay.
Some of those have been marked already. Not every single one of them. Some of those have been marked and wrapped with ribbon for review.
That was
Frank, it looks like
speaking?
Carl, that was Sean.
Savage speaking.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Frank,
Yes.
Sean has Carl has his hand up and I've unmuted him. Carl, if
Great.
you want to.
Thanks, Amy. Yeah, I would just like to make a few comments because this project is really important to me to protect that property. And what was going to happen down there was they were going to build 14 houses on 30 acres. And I said, I don't want that to happen. So I'm making a huge personal investment to protect this. Now, Sean and I went down today to mark some trees that were to get a little bit of a vista from where the house is going to be. There's 17 acres of briars down there, and I'm still bleeding from walking through the briars, which is just in front of where the house was. So yes, briars are important to protect the wildlife, and I am a huge wildlife fan. One of the reasons I want to do this is to protect the wildlife that live there. But I would ask the commission to greatly consider what the alternative prospects are for this property if we don't do this. And if I can't do a lot of what I want to do, I'm not going to do it. And so this is a huge investment on my part to protect this. And so I don't want to get all, I don't want people to get all worked up about what I'm doing versus what could be done there. And so I'm asking for some relief in that buffer area to be able to remove what I don't want in front of my house, and I will replace it with natural vegetation that is very conducive to wildlife, and Sean will do an outstanding job designing that. But to have briars, right in front of the house, I'm, Sean can attest to the fact that I'm bleeding from going down there just marking some trees. So, Steve, I think I appreciate your desire to protect everything as it is, but I think you want me to buy this and protect that whole 17 acres.
Okay. Thanks for your input on that, Mr. Christensen.
And I'll take comments. I mean, if somebody doesn't want me to do it, I'll do something else.
I think what the commission has hearings on these. You certainly, I think, you have to understand you're working in a pretty sensitive area, and
absolutely,
and the project you have is fairly substantial, and the commission's not looking at this any differently than they would at any other project. When you're working in buffer zones, or you're working in a resource area, or some sort of special place, which we know that this is, the commission's looking at that and trying to protect as much as possible. Certainly your statements about only developing one piece is a good one, and we're happy to see that this isn't a different outcome for this piece of property, because it would be a shame for that to happen. But what happened with the...
Go ahead, sorry.
With the Blakey family, this whole property was in Chapter 61A, and they also were good stewards of the property. And then when it was passed on, people beyond that, the parents didn't feel the same way, and so it was up for grabs. And thank goodness someone like yourself is picking up a big part of it. But over time, these properties get divided again and again, and so the commission tries to look at that and say, how do we protect some of this? And in our orders, we try to be sure that we protect some of these, so that we know that further down the road, we were just out at the former Blakey property because the present owner would like to remove more trees that a prior commission asked that were saved. So things change, and we're certainly not looking to make that difficult. And we get that if you're going to invest this kind of money in a property or have expectations of making it nice, I get that. Just sort of looking and saying what could be done to enhance some habitat elsewhere for those changes. And I don't think it needs to be significant, but I think it's important for the commission to know. I don't think anybody's looking to deny this project. It's just a simple matter of trying to protect as much as possible.
Yeah, and I am all for that. I mean, my whole motivation for doing this was to protect the habitat and to make it, so that the house is not visible from the road, so that it looks just like it has, and that we have minimum impact on the wildlife down there. And I just wanted to express that and not have it go onto a direction where we're destroying this habitat. I am trying to protect this habitat. That's my motivation.
And Mr. Christensen, Steve Ivers again. I would love you to take a look at the preface to the Rivers Protection Act and the thinking that has gone into that, and protection of the first 100 feet.
Mm-hmm.
You're right at the first 100 feet.
Yep.
And they have a requirement in that act that the first 100 feet be not touched. It's a no-touch area. So this commission needs to take a look at that as well and evaluate what you're going to do in that first 100 feet. Very, very, they need to take a look at that very carefully. That's all, and try to come up with, maybe working with you and Mr. Papich, a solution that will agree to everybody's interests. Okay, that's all.
Yeah, and I think what I'd like to do is have it be as natural as possible. There's a great project down in Plymouth where they rebuilt a cranberry bog that is it's unbelievable what they did down there and how beautiful it is and what natural habitat, how it can be reconstructed into a great place for wildlife. So
Yes, indeed. Yes, absolutely. I've seen that.
I'd love to do something like that. If you walk down there, Steve, you'll see it's not, you have walked down there actually.
I
So,
sure have, but I wear chaps, by the way.
I did too. I wore chaps. My arms, it was too hot today to wear arm guards. So my arms are bleeding. But anyway, I think there's whatever Sean comes up with is going to be very natural and very great for the wildlife down there.
I look forward to it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
The other comment I wanted to make though was, I'm also under some time constraints, and to have, and this meeting took a long time to get on the agenda, and to hear things get delayed, I'm concerned that I'm going to bump up against some constraints in the purchase and sale agreement that I have, and just in, I'm going to have windows on when to get the work done and contractors. So the quicker we can get this done, the better from my perspective, Amy. I don't know what we can do to kind of move some of the things in parallel versus waiting for step A and then B. If they don't have to wait, can we do them in parallel so I can get going?
Okay. Thank you very much. Do we have anybody else in the audience for this?
I don't see anybody, Frank.
Okay. Can I just ask a couple of questions? Steve, at one point in your comments, did you mention a brook?
Yes, there is a brook that connects the larger BVW to the, I would say, to the north and east on this, to the north and west on this plan, down to the salt marsh. And so I did a little bit of work. Deb was very helpful in that respect, finding flags with me. Along that brook, the flags looked fine. However, we didn't go very far up the brook. That was when Amy arrived at the site, and we stopped working on the brook and came over to the house site itself because she thought it was more important at that time, and I would agree with her. She did the right thing by bringing us over to the house site, and we evaluated that particular site at the time. Okay. So I'd like to get back to the brook. Yes, Frank, I would like to.
So is this like, so we're talking around wetlands flags 17, 18, 19? A17, A18, A19, just trying to figure out where.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Let's see. Let me go back. Yes. And I started actually at A1. I'm sorry, wrong. I'm looking at the wrong page. Okay. Let's look at the correct page here. I was over at A136 actually. That's where we were, Deb.
So I see the culvert under the cart path.
Yes.
And so you're saying that the brook starts, the brook isn't delineated. It's an intermittent stream, or what do we have there?
It would be an intermittent stream.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So Mr. Christensen, what the concern is just making sure that we have on the plan all of the resource areas. So when the commission issues an order with this, all the wetlands pieces that are on this become fact. So it's not just a matter of the things that go on at the house, but all the other wetlands areas, so that at some point, should you or someone else decide to develop the property further, the resource areas and anything wetlands areas are documented on the plan. And it sounds like Steve's, who delineated those originally?
That was Brad Holmes.
So, like, to Steve's point, there's someone that we feel is responsible and has done a good job, and it'd be good to try to get to that as quick as you can, Steve.
Sure.
If this, Amy, you're suggesting that this be continued, and obviously Mr. Christensen wants to move it along. How soon can we get back to this so that we can pull this together? What's a realistic time frame? And what are we missing that, to his point, that we can
Well, we're
kind of
missing
do
a
rather
written
than
report from Steve, and we're missing final revised plan and final stormwater sign off. And it also appears we're missing proposal for vegetation. I mean, the next meeting is in 2 weeks. That's 21st. Our requirement is to have all revised materials in 1 week before, which would be Flag Day, the 14th. So if everybody thinks they can meet that deadline, we can move it to then. Otherwise, we go to the next meeting after that, which is first meeting in July.
Mr. Chairman, I cannot meet that deadline Friday, this coming Friday. I'm sorry.
So the next meeting is July what? Amy?
19th.
July 19th?
We're not going to meet the first week in July?
Nope.
Is there a possibility, if we had all the information, that we could close an issue?
Oh, the next time we see them?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so, if everything, I mean, that's why I really want to make sure that, you know, conservation, you know, that as many commissioners as possible can actually get out to the site. But and also that we can come up with some kind of a plan to memorialize that 100-foot marker and make sure that that's accurate, and, you know, come up to an agreement with, you know, what can happen between there and the river, that type of thing. And I see
So-
Carl has his hand up again, so.
Go ahead. Yes, Mr. Christensen. Go ahead.
Muted?
You're on-
Okay,
you're unmuted.
Okay, thank you. No, and I appreciate that, you know, we need to get everything delineated on the plans for, you know, for posterity. And I think there's been some discussions about where some of the various lines were, and that's great. Is there any way to get, you know, and obviously we'll respect Steve. It sounds like he's very knowledgeable in what he's doing on defining where the wetlands are. Could we go forward contingent upon him defining the wetlands and just have the markers then define where it is and update the plan afterwards? Because I don't think where he's still got to do the work is even in the construction site at all. And I think it would be great to define the rest of the wetlands, but could we make it contingent upon defining those later? But everything that's being impacted, I think, is defined on the plan already. And I don't know procedurally whether that's possible or not.
We have done things where there's pieces that are outside of the main part of the project, or if we were waiting on, say, a submittal for vegetation or mitigation that we can close subject to getting those plans. But we won't issue orders until we get them. So I'm just trying to think of the best way to move this forward, and at the same time make sure that we do our due diligence, and that you get a plan that you're not going back and forth on. So,
right.
Frank, can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
We can continue this to June 21st, and if all the pieces come together by the deadline, then we'll see them on the 21st. Otherwise, it'll just continue to the 19th, which is the next available meeting for that.
Could Steve get his work done by the 19th?
No, he said he can't, but to your point.
No, I would
21st.
need to get the work done by this Friday, right?
So we have to have.
Steve can meet for the deadline for the 19th, though.
I'm sure
most
I
likely.
can. For the 19th, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So we'll continue to the 19th, and I think it's just, everybody's got to stay in touch with each other, make sure we get all that. I think that includes Sean with coming up with a reasonable mitigation plan for some of the pieces that you'd like to alter. I think it's important to know what your plans are for that. And I think it would be good to know roughly what kind of changes are being made in that 100, to Steve's point. So if
Yeah,
you
and
guys
we marked the trees that we wanted to take out today. Sean and I did that. And
Okay.
we didn't touch anything inside the 50. So it's just between the 50 and 100. It's just a small strip where we wanted to take
The
out.
50 which? There's a whole bunch of 50-foot zones here. Is it the 50-foot from the BVW or the salt marsh?
So what Deb, what Merrill Engineering marked off is, see the green, I think it's the light green line.
Yes.
Is that the one, Deb? I think that's it.
Yes, so what we talked about, Steve, was looking at the area between the 100-foot riverfront
Yes.
towards the Gulf to the 50-foot no disturb buffer, wetland buffer. So there is a small portion
Yep.
that they were looking at to see what trees might want to be removed through there if possible.
Sure.
And most of them are trees that have been severely damaged by wind, and so we marked all those today. That's how I ended up with wounds.
Yes, and we noted those trees when we were out there, Deb and Amy.
Yes.
We noted that area specifically and said, yes, there have been a lot of tree fall in that area, and also trees that are stressed and broken branches and things with the wind. So yes, I would agree with you. That's an area that has taken a lot of abuse from the weather recently. Yes.
Right. So it's that strip in there that we went in and marked the trees.
Wonderful. Okay. Understood.
And it's
If anybody
the
wants to
trees
run a
that are
look at
marked are the trees that are staying or the trees that are being removed
the trees that we marked are the ones that we would like to remove.
within the no touch buffer.
I'm not.
They're within the 50-foot wetland no disturb and the 100-foot riverfront. So they're basically between the 50 and 100-foot wetland buffer. So
Right.
none of them are in the 50-foot no disturb.
Right. We didn't touch anything inside that 50-foot no disturb.
And did you make a tally of the trees? And
We didn't. We thought about it about halfway through, and I said, "Oh, geez, I go back and recount them." So we did not. I'm guessing you saw them. They're mostly broken ones, or maybe if there was two right next to each other, and it looked like they were preventing good, strong growth on both trees. We said, well, maybe one of those should go, so the other one can
yes, good,
do better.
Good. I'm glad you're thinking in that manner. Wonderful.
He had to come out for a transfusion. I think Sean.
I unmuted Sean.
But yeah, that's good. Let's hear Sean.
Yeah, so I missed some of that because somehow I have an unstable internet connection. I apologize. One of the things I think that Carl must have been talking about is what we were doing and what we were looking at for tree removal. One of the things I wanted to note in terms of overriding is we're not proposing any hardscape construction beyond the 100-foot riparian or just getting into the 100-foot of the salt marsh. So we're staying back of the 50-foot of the salt marsh also. So I don't know if anybody was speaking to that or made reference to that. So the only pieces that we were talking about that was work in the 100 of the riparian, the inner 100, or into the 100, we weren't even touching the 50-foot of the salt marsh, of course, was that we wanted to do some landscape renovation there. So I wasn't sure how much had been spoken about at that point in what I just missed for the last few minutes.
Sure.
Carl probably hit on most of the high points. There are a handful of trees that have looked like they've just been chopped off at the top. Some oaks. Typically, some of the pines were looking in tough shape. There was a fair amount of dead plant material.
Mm-hmm. And here's a question for Deb. Is it very clearly marked? Is that 50-foot inner buffer from the salt marsh? Is that clearly marked in the field? Staked off.
The 50-foot no disturb has been marked with stakes along along the limit of the 50-foot no disturb, yes.
Great, excellent. So that the members could see that area very well, right?
The goal was to maintain the high degree of the oaks in areas right at the house. We're proposing construction. Obviously, we can't save those trees with the grade work and the house structure itself. So there is going to be removal of trees. Again, using some amount of reasonable approach to it in the treatment of 17 acres and removing some amount of trees for flat area that has to happen for house construction, driveways, pool area.
Understood.
It's still staying off of.
Is the house staked out enough so when the commission does a site visit, we can see all that?
Yes, we staked the large house box, including the garage. So there's 4 stakes out there. I believe one that's on the front right hand of the garage is a flag hanging from a tree because that's on top of ledge. So obviously we couldn't put a stake in the ledge. But they do have reference to the first floor elevation. So if you look at the stake, it'll tell you how far up it would be to the first floor.
Okay. Have we got any rough idea of timing, Amy, for a site visit?
Yeah,
For the
I
commission?
put an email out there, and so basically, anytime anyone's ready, we're ready. It's easily walkable. So
Okay.
we really need to keep this moving.
Yep.
So can we get a motion?
Make a motion to continue Lot 17 Border Street to June 19th.
No, it's the 21st.
The 21st?
July 19th.
July 19th, not
Oh.
June 19th.
Wait a minute. I
No,
thought
no.
we were.
No, wait a minute.
Yeah.
My understanding was if we're gonna move this to July, that we're gonna try to work at pulling all these pieces together so that we could.
So 6/21, Frank? I'm sorry.
7/21,
July?
yes.
7/19.
7/19.
Christ. It's 7/19 is we're not having a meeting the day after the 4th. So we have a meeting then. But my question is, can we, through this process, pull all this together so that we can close and issue orders that same night if we work at that end? So once we get Steve's information back, we can work with Deb. To Mr. Christensen's point, can we do some things simultaneously? So we're not going to say, well, we're waiting for Steve to do a wetlands area that's really irrelevant if other pieces can be done. And that was why my question was, why can't Janet wrap up her work as well?
Okay, so July
19th.
19th. I make a motion, we continue Lot 17 Border Street to July 19th.
I'll second it.
We have a second from
Richard.
Richard. So all in favor, Jen,
Yep.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan. Okay.
Yes.
And Frank, yes. But again, we're going to try to get all these different pieces together so we can pull to that end.
Yeah.
All right.
Understood, Mr. Chairman.
Good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
192 Clap Road. So I'm going to recluse myself on this one because this is my neighbor and I've done sort of extensive work for them. I can read this to open, Richard, and then you can take it from there. All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. On June 7, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. in the Town Hall, Situate Conservation Commission will hold wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Situate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of David Anderson for work related to the construction of a pool, patio, fence, at dwelling location 192 Clap Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the virtual meetings available on the agenda posted on the town website.
Yeah.
Okay, who we got on tonight?
We have James Garfield on from Morse Engineering.
Hey, James, how are you tonight?
Doing good. Good evening, everyone. So to familiarize yourself with the plan here, we got our property lines outlined in bold. The existing single-family dwelling is shown there on the plan. So this project's a notice of intent for a proposed swimming pool, pervious patio, and fence to enclose that area. The subject resource areas are a BVW shown in blue here, along with a 50 and 100-foot no disturbs, or 50-foot no disturb and 100-foot buffer zone. There's also an off-site certified vernal pool, which we showed the 125-foot setback to that on this plan. All of our proposed work is outside of the 50-foot wetland buffer, as well as the 125-foot setback to the certified vernal pool. And we're also proposing a mulch sock down gradient of the proposed work. So with that, I'll leave it to you for any questions.
Thank you. Let's start with Brendan for questions.
I don't have any questions at the moment yet.
Andy?
Okay for right now, Richard.
Okay. Jen?
I'm curious about the pool location, given that it's nearly entirely in the 100-foot buffer. It's a pretty good size lot, so just trying to understand why, it couldn't move closer. I'm not familiar with, how close they can be to septic or how close they could be to a house, but that's interesting to me. I mean, honestly, even if the paver area and the pool area flip-flop, that might even feel a little bit better because it's less digging so close to the 50. Just speaking super off the cuff here, but I think that there's definitely an approvable pool here somewhere. I'm just curious why this is the spot.
Yep. So given the existing site here, where the existing septic system is, along with the fact that this is all previously disturbed lawn area, where this proposed swimming pool is being proposed, there was an existing barn there previously, which has since been removed. And that barn was actually a larger footprint than this proposal. So that was kind of the rationale for the location of the swimming pool.
So James, quickly, are you indicating that this was already previously disturbed?
It was this area, correct?
Okay. Doug?
Well, so
I'm sorry, Jen, go ahead.
I mean, cool. Like, great that it was already previously disturbed, but I'm assuming that barn didn't have a 15-foot hole under it to dig a pool. So that's kind of a little bit more of my thought process. But I do know some barns are really complex, so maybe it did have a 15-foot hole under it.
Yeah, I can't speak to the foundation of the barn. I'm not aware. But again, we're outside of that 125-foot setback, completely outside of it to the vernal pool, and we're not at all within the 50-foot no disturb. So that's why we're coming here tonight before you guys.
Okay, I'd still like to see the pool shifted, but I'm good for now, Richard.
Thanks, Jen. Doug?
I suppose a similar question. When you look at the site on Google Earth or something like that, there's a big wide open lawn that's already been, I don't know how long it's been like that. It does seem like you could slide the whole thing to the east, and but maybe it's the view from the house to the pool that they were trying not to have. So it does look like there's some room in there to move it further away. I agree. I mean, I think it's an approvable project. I just, I guess I have the same question there as, look, you got to be 20 feet away from the septic system. It looks like it's not a dimension to that, but that's to the pool itself. So you're considerably beyond that. It looks like more like 60 feet or so. So there would be room to move it, but I understand if the applicant has a definite reason for not wanting the pool immediately behind their house or something. But other than that, very minimal grading gets done afterwards. But so it's just a matter of, you know, doing whatever you can, you know, within the 100 as well as just the 50. So, but that's it.
Thanks, Doug. Penny?
Yes, I can clear up a couple of things. That whole backyard that has been a yard for probably 100 years, it's all grass back there, even into the 50-foot, okay? It's all grass straight across going west over to Carol Straight's property, okay? So, and the barn that was there, it's across the street now. There was a huge barn. You can look at the barn. It's directly across the street. I was there to see it moved from one spot to the other. So I can understand that he's kind of putting this in the middle of this grass area that's been there really since I've lived in Scituate, and that's a long time. And I'd hate to see that big tree go in by the septic system. So I really don't, yes, I understand it's 100-foot and 50-foot buffer, but it was disturbed many, many years ago and has been grass for many, many years. So it isn't as though he's doing something new. And there was a foundation for that barn, so I don't, it's good size.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Penny.
You're welcome.
James, the first thing I would think of is really along the lines of what Jen mentioned. Is there any way to move this at least a little bit further away from the 50? That would be one. And number two, since it is within the 100, is there any proposed mitigation that might be offered for that? Wouldn't think it'd have to be major, but I think something should be offered.
Sure. I guess it's in our opinion, I guess, that you know, sliding the pool over wouldn't have any measurable, you know, difference of effect. You know, in the terms of the, you know, the minimal distance that we could slide it. We are definitely open to potentially having mitigation as a compromise on this project. I don't know if the commission would be open to a 10-foot wide vegetated buffer somewhere along that existing tree line to act as mitigation.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Let's keep that under advisement, and let's see if there's anybody in the audience that wants to comment on this, please. Do we have anybody, Amy or Jen?
Do you want to hear my comments?
Oh, I guess so. Sorry.
All right. So I think you have some good points. I mean, I think this is an approvable project, but it would be nice if the pool could be shifted, you know, the work could be shifted a little bit out of the buffer if possible, or, you know, if you can't avoid that, minimizing or mitigating, you know, maybe come up with some kind of an enhancement for the buffer. But I mean, it's tough when you have pre-existing lawn, so that, you know, you've already got your area of disturbance. So he had no comments, but I think that we can take care of this tonight. Probably close in an issue with some kind of special condition.
Thank you. Thanks, Amy. Sorry about that. Okay, is there anybody in the audience about this project?
Seeing no raised hands.
Okay, so James, then I would like to see that mitigation you offered. I don't know what anybody else feels, and I'm happy to ask anyone on the commission to see if they would also want the mitigation included.
I'd like to see the mitigation, but I'd also like to know how far the pool could be moved to the right.
James?
So the mitigation plan we can absolutely provide. And I don't know if that could be something, a conditional approval tonight. And yeah, I mean, I know the applicant really wants the pool in this area. And, as we've stated, it is in that previously disturbed lawn area. I believe mitigation area will definitely be a great compromise if the commission's open to it. Do you have any more thoughts on that, Jen?
I don't think it's an answer. Like, I think I'm curious why the pool can't move further to the right, away from the 50-foot buffer line.
Would 5 to 10 feet of landscape? I mean, I know that us representing the applicant here, that's the desired location for that proposed patio. So
right, like, I mean, there's other people on this commission, so I'm not gonna keep going on it. I think my feelings are pretty clear.
James, is the applicant on the call?
not to my knowledge.
No.
Okay, I mean, do we have any insight? I mean, was it based on like sunlight, or is it because of the canopy of the tree? I mean, we could condition adding some native plants and some posts along the 50 or whatever, or try to, try to exchange some of the lawn area that exists and have been planted. I mean, I don't know. Really don't.
Yeah, I mean, we're open to a 5 to 10 foot vegetative buffer. That's totally acceptable.
So Amy, Richard?
Yes.
Do you mind if I weigh in for a second? So
Oh,
I know
sure.
that
I'm
I'm
sorry,
not, yeah, I'm not voting and try not to participate, but I did do quite a bit of work there. I spent time with the owner. The problem with shifting it, it's a little hard to see on that plan, but when you shift that up, they actually wind up having to build quite a bit taller retaining wall on the side of the pool closest to the wet. So they were trying to minimize a taller retaining. It doesn't show real well on those grade lines. They're 2-foot lines, but when it was staked out, in order to move the pool up the hill, it created a much taller retaining wall for the pool.
Okay.
Or they'd have to make a cut into the yard and put the retaining wall on the other side. So it just complicated that yard does slope considerably more than it would appear when you look at it. I'll leave it at that.
Oh, thank you, Frank. Any other comments? I definitely would want that 10-foot mitigation. And if we get it closed, I'd want a plan submitted before the conditions go out. Would that work for you, James?
Yes, it would.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion.
Can I ask a clarifying question though? The 10-foot mitigation from what line? Are we talking about from the 50-foot buffer? What's the 10-foot mitigation?
I guess I'd like the I guess the commission's opinion on that. The fact that the existing tree line completely goes pretty much up to that limit of bordering bordering vegetated wetland. I don't know if that would be where we'd want to propose that buffer, seeing as that's where the lawn currently extends to.
James, can you point out where you're talking about, please?
I don't have control of the screen, but you'll see the tree line that actually follows the limit of the bordering vegetated wetlands currently.
Mm-hmm.
The lawn pretty much goes right up to that area. So we were thinking along that limit of current lawn, we could add a vegetated buffer to act as mitigation for this.
So maybe doing some plantings within the 50-foot buffer is what you're proposing.
Correct.
Gotcha. All right.
Does that answer your question, Doug?
Yes. Yep.
And the planting plan would specify exactly what you're putting in there, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Anybody else before we see if we can get a motion?
Maybe just if they're going to do plantings, that have that as a condition that that's assisted at least by a, I don't know who flagged the wetlands, but whoever did that, maybe giving some insistence on species and whatnot, because a 10-foot strip might not accomplish as much as a particular area that's a little more sensitive. And I don't have the expertise to do that, but if you're going to bother to plant it, like, yeah, we just want to see the plants going in the best location that benefits the buffer zone as you can, and it also keeps it so that it doesn't interfere with the pool, the enjoyment of the pool and things like that. So
right.
That's all.
Thank you, Doug. That good, James?
Yeah, and before you guys close too, I mean, we all know from experience here that if it's left vague, just down the road, it's to interpretation, it's a little subjective. I think we should be specific as possible. And I mean, I'd be more than happy to meet with the wetland scientist out on site, and so we can pick a good area.
Yeah.
If that would be helpful. Or otherwise, I mean, I think we hold and close pending submittal of this enhancement area plan by a professional wetland scientist.
James, that sound appropriate for you?
Yes, that sounds good.
Or your client? Okay, good. Okay then, so can we get a motion?
I make a motion to approve, to close the hearing for, not approve, to close the hearing for 192 Clap Road.
With the
conditions that we had so stated in our discussions.
Okay, so we have a motion from Doug. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. That was Brendan, right?
Yes, Brendan.
Okay. Penny?
No.
Jen?
Why did Penny said no to this?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm good with it.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
And I'm also yes. So I didn't forget anybody, did I? No, I don't think so. So that's it. Thank you. And I guess it'll go as a one negative and the rest positive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
You bet.
57 Garrison Road, Lawrence and Lauren Water. On June 7th at 5:30 p.m. the Town Hall, Situate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Situate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Lawrence and Lauren Water for work related to constructing a pool house and associated fence, retaining wall, grading at dwelling at 57 Garrison Drive, Scituate. abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the virtual meeting will be available on the agenda posted on the town website. And we have Morse Engineering.
Yep. Again, for the record, James Garfield with Morse Engineering, here tonight representing the applicants for this notice of intent as well as stormwater permit application. So we've got our property lines outlined here in bold. The single family dwelling currently in existence on the site centered on the lot. This site is currently has a swimming pool in its backyard with a port aggregate patio. The subject resource area at this site is a bordering vegetated wetland shown in blue to the rear of the lot. We also show the 50 and 100-foot wetland setbacks in red and green. And what we're proposing is a 22 by 48 pool house and addition of, well, an expansion of that existing patio, which the proposed roof area is going to be drained to 2 underground roof dry well systems, and the proposed port aggregate patio is being directed to a crushed stone trench on the back side of the patio. The vast majority of this proposed work is outside of the 50-foot buffer with the exception of some minor grading, the discharge pipe for one of the roof drywall systems, and the fence that is enclosing this project. So the entirety of this project is in previously disturbed lawn area. There's no tree clearing associated with this project. Rates and volumes of runoff are being mitigated by the proposed stormwater systems. This project is actually has been reviewed by Merrill Engineering, and we believe to have satisfactorily addressed all of their comments. And lastly, we've got a mulch sock at the down gradient limit of work. So with that, I will pass it to you for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Jen?
I'm good for right now.
Andy?
Hey, so you said that the fence was going in the resource area. That's a new fence or that's an existing fence?
There's a new fence being proposed, essentially around the existing tree line in the rear yard.
Okay. You know, we've looked at some fences in the buffer, and I guess that raises a question for me. And then I guess I'm also looking, you know, if we move forward with this, just a thought on some potential mitigation. That shed up in the 50 in the top corner is something we could look at, but that's what I'm seeing for now.
Okay. Brendan?
I'm sorry. Is the fence shown on this?
Yeah, it's the line with little tiny squares. See that going?
Behind the pool house, and then it takes a kind of dog legs up.
Yeah, it's
to the
hard for
left.
you to see there.
So there's a black line with like little dots. It's at the grade 99 on the back side of the pool.
Oh, okay.
Goes all the way around.
Yeah. All right. I don't have any other questions at this time.
Richard?
Oh, I don't have anything new. Thank you.
Doug is going to recluse himself, I think, because Merrill reviewed this one. Am I right?
I'm afraid so. Sorry about that.
Okay. Well, somebody's got to make a buck. Penny?
Okay, so you have the existing pool out of the 100. Then we're gonna put this humongous pool house. It has drainage. Okay. What is that stone wall? I'm a little confused here. That off the top of the pool house. What is that there?
Yep. So in order to accommodate the grading out, this is a pretty steep site on the back side of this proposed pool house. So we are
Okay.
doing two stepped retaining walls, and essentially on the front side of one of those retaining walls is just a crushed stone trench, which is going to infiltrate the runoff that is coming from that new expanded patio area. So as I said, roof runoffs being directed to the two roof drywall systems. The added poured aggregate patio is being directed to this crushed stone trench, and the rates and volumes of runoff have been analyzed through a HydroCAD analysis and are being mitigated as part of this proposal.
Okay. Do they really need the shed, the existing shed, to stay?
I'd have to run that by the applicant, who might even be on the line here tonight. I'm not sure.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Amy?
Yeah, so actually I have Peter Palmieri on the call who can run through the stormwater part of this project. But and I'll turn it over to him in a few minutes after I just get out some basic comments. You know, so the project itself did trigger the Scituate stormwater bylaw. The project's, you know, largely a buffer to BVW only project, but there is, you know, some disturbance into the 50 here. Grades are really tough. I was wondering, James, did this successfully gain other board approvals as far as zoning board, or did it trigger accessory dwelling?
Nope. So
for the town?
The intent of this is definitely not an accessory dwelling, and no, we didn't have to go in front of the zoning board, being a compliant site. So.
And how are they accessing for construction? Are they coming in?
Good point.
In front?
It'll be around the left side of the building. The applicant has said that it's relatively flat on that side, and you'd be able to loop around and get to the rear of the site from there.
Okay, I mean, I'm thinking that erosion controls are going to be quite important. And also, just also installing runoff, the stormwater components early in the process would also be good. But why don't we turn it over to Peter, just so he can let us know what he reviewed and how that went.
Thank you, Amy. Peter Palmieri from Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors. As you stated, we did review the plan regarding the stormwater management system. We actually reviewed two plans. We reviewed the initial submittal and submitted a peer review on May 25th. Subsequent to that, we reviewed the revised plans and submitted our latest review to the commission on the 1st of June. As part of our review, initially we had brought up several points which the applicant's engineers addressed. We did request additional cross sections and details be added to the plan showing the elevations of the various stormwater components, as well as the elevation of the estimated seasonal high groundwater. Prior to our review, there hadn't been any soil testing for the stormwater systems. The design engineer did submit that information. It was acceptable, so that was performed. And we had also recommended some erosion control pads be added for the overflows for the roof drainage infiltration system, and that has been incorporated into the plan. So as it stands now, all our comments have been satisfactorily addressed.
Thank you, Peter. You're welcome. Do we have anybody in the audience that wants to speak to this?
Right, using the raise hand feature. Seeing no one, Frank.
Okay. So given the last hearing you had with the pool and structure, now you're coming to another one. It looks to me like this is all being regraded, going down to the 99-foot contour. Is that right, James?
That's correct.
So you're doing a fair amount of grading in the 50 behind the pool house and where that retaining wall dumps off the end and those steps go down to the yard.
Yes, we've made an effort to keep all of said grading outside of that existing tree line. And, you know, as you can see, like I said earlier, we added 2 4-foot retaining walls on the back end of the pool house. And that was in an attempt to keep that grading, you know, as tight to the upland side of this project as possible.
So the tree line that you're showing and where the fence is going, is that tree line existing?
That is existing, correct.
I think Andy noted, you know, the shed's in the 50 and then a good chunk of this alteration and filling is in the 50. So I'm wondering if a similar application with a vegetation or some sort of enhancement be put. I'm just trying to think of what would be a good mitigation for working in the 50 on this project. Anybody have any comments?
Frank, one thought I have is if the fence is on the right side of the 50, that would be a nice natural way to keep further activity out of there.
So
and
the
move
fence,
move the shed with it.
the fence going up to the 50-foot.
Yeah, that would be a nice permanent marker, and then the shed would have to be pulled out to the other side of the 50 as well.
I appreciate Andy's suggestion. I think that's a great one.
James, do you know why they chose to run these stairs down in that location?
So I know that the this is going to be a 2-story pool house, and I know that the bottom floor is going to be strictly used for storage. So I know that they needed an easier way to kind of get down and behind that building. Hence the stairs going from the top of the patio down so that somebody could get back there. And to that point, I know that the applicant really wants to try to keep that area as open as possible to access the rear of that building, seeing as the accessing it from the right side of the lot wouldn't be very feasible, considering A, there's not a lot of room to get back there, and B, the septic system would which lies in the front yard would be kind of in their way for anything to try to get back there, if that makes sense. But we're totally open to mitigation plantings again for this one. I hope that answers your question.
So when you say it's 2-story, are you saying that there's like a sub-level and then a main level?
Right. So it's essentially a walkout.
So the storage, so the backside of this is you're going to walk out of it, and I assume that's storage or something for patio stuff.
I guess I misunderstood. So there's like a basement foundation essentially here, not just like a slab?
So it is a slab, but they're filling in the front side of the building, if that makes sense.
No.
But I guess I'm not an architect, so I don't have great knowledge of that matter. But to my knowledge, that was what the intent is. It's first it's a walkout with storage on the bottom floor, no habitable space or anything like that. And the top story is just for, I believe the intent is just to have guests over and hang out in the that top area. So I know that's the applicant's goal is to be able to get back there for storage.
So that just raises significantly more concerns for me in terms of the significance of a structure well within nearly the entire buffer zone. It's quite clear now why you need 2, 4-foot retaining walls. I'm rather against this.
James, is there a connection to septic here?
We don't show one there, but I think it would be easy enough to show on the plan. We would tie it. There's no bedrooms as part of that proposed pool house, but sewer we could definitely tie into the existing septic tank in the front yard.
Well, I definitely think the connection should be, the utility should be,
Sure.
and then, I mean, just as of general analysis, whether or not, why wasn't it cited, outside of this area where you're so close to the resource areas?
You're asking for why the building wasn't?
Yes.
I believe just that there isn't really another spot for it. And I know that, a big factor in the orientation of this building is the sunlight aspect. It's looking west currently, which is why it's angled the way it is. So I know that that was a big consideration in where the applicant proposed it. So that's, at least from our perspective, where the orientation came from.
Well, if it was on the other side of the pool, it would nearly be entirely out of the buffer zone. So I'd love to, I feel like a broken record tonight. I'd love to understand why.
Anybody? So I guess in looking at this now that it's been made
I have a
clear-
hand up too, Frank.
Okay. So Lauren's iPhone, is that the owner? Do we have Lauren?
Yep. Hi, can you hear me? That's a little loud.
Yes. Yep.
Hi. I just wanted to clarify that the house, I'm sorry, I'm outside of Starland. But the house itself is a single story. As you're looking from the pool, it's just single story. What we were trying to do is to work with the curve. I know James had mentioned that there's, well, you can see the lines, that there's a change in the steepness or whatever the right word is. So we were just trying to work with that to allow for some storage underneath. So it's a 1-story pool house with some storage underneath. And then in terms of the positioning, essentially, if it were on the other side, it would block out all of the sun to the pool, and it would also break up and be, I believe, too close to the sewer as well, but it would break up the entire yard for visibility for kids and whatnot. Did that make sense? Could you hear me?
Yes. And I think, Lauren, if you can appreciate where the commission's coming from, we know that this has been cut back. How old is your house, the existing house?
It's about 20 years.
Okay. Was this built with the Walnut Tree subdivision?
Correct. Yep.
I guess what I'm wondering is if have you owned the house since it was built? Lauren?
She's got put on mute again.
Okay. No, we haven't. It's changed hands several times.
Okay, because I think when most of those projects were conditioned, stuff was supposed to stay out of the 50. So maybe over time, other owners have encroached on that buffer zone. Maybe that tree line's gotten moved back, or I see there's a stone wall there. Not exactly sure. But
And the tree line, I can tell you, is very mature. So I don't know. I don't have the history, but the tree line is very mature that's existing.
okay.
And
Well,
we wanted to work along with that. You know, we were trying to work along with that.
right. But typically, when these were conditioned, these houses were conditioned.
Yeah.
They were 20 years is recent enough that that 50-foot setback line would have held. And then what happens over time is people continue to clear back and make the yard a little bit bigger. So, you know, you may have inherited something where you've got additional encroachment on the 50-foot no build, including the
I don't
shed.
believe so, because we did see the original the first time that it was sold. We saw the very original one. I don't believe it's moved, to the best of my knowledge.
Well, we may even have that information.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you watching earlier in the meeting, but there was discussion about another pool being constructed, and they were actually all outside the 50. This your project, you're within inside the 50-foot no disturb with some pretty extensive grading, and the shed's already there. So you know, typically there's got to be some sort of reason to allow that to happen. And if we do let it happen, then there's usually some mitigation proposed to offset that. And I don't see either thing on this plan.
Frank, we'd be totally open to providing a mitigation plan. It's not a problem.
I'm just wondering where that would get located, James.
Right.
So in some cases, we've, you know, closed pending the mitigation plan. In this case, I'm not comfortable closing without seeing the mitigation plan first, especially given the amount of change within the 50, the significant structure, the shed that's in the buffer, the fence that's in like beyond the inside the 50. I don't love this project really.
So we could either make a motion to continue, and you guys could come back with some additional information. I think you've heard does anybody else want to comment? Andy or Brendan?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have, I would love to see that 50 sort of restored, and there be some significant, or respect of the 50 restored, I guess, even if there is grading, and some significant
mitigation.
If it moves forward, but there's a lot sort of working in that. There's a lot of negatives to this.
Yeah, I just to chime in, just to kind of agree with that, I guess it seems like there's been potential encroachment that shouldn't have happened. So, and we're certainly working in the 50 year, and that's not a good thing.
Frank?
Yes.
This development wasn't built that long ago, and there's no way that clearing would have been allowed when this original house was in the 50. So that it definitely, they have to come back with something big for that.
Well,
I mean, I understand they probably didn't do it, but you've inherited the problem when you bought this. Sorry.
Well, in fairness, we don't know what that, we'd have to go back to the original filing to see where the wetlands line was.
Yeah.
Was delineated when that project was done. You know, this wetlands line was done, I can't see that date, but 6/13 something. So it's pretty recent. So I think, James, you got the gist of this. You guys need to kind of sort out what to do with that being in the 50. Maybe talk to Brad.
Yeah, we'd like to ask for a continuance on this one, and we'll come back to you guys with an updated plan.
Okay.
And some
All right, so we'll make them. Do you think you can get that pulled together within a week?
Yes, I'd say we could probably do that.
So we can continue this to what's our date?
21st.
21st, June 21st.
Okay.
But that means you guys got to get stuff in
by next Monday.
By early next week, right, Amy? Jen, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I want to get a motion from somebody.
I'll make
that.
a motion to continue to June 21st for 57 Garrison.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Doug's, Jen?
Yep.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Before we move on, Richard, I didn't realize you were meeting outside.
I'm just up on my deck. It was a little hot in the house, and there's a nice breeze near the ocean, so I
just stop.
It was still 95 degrees here. That's not like it was cold.
Okay.
But I said earlier, Frank, I was waiting to see the Scituate bear walk by, and then I would show everybody as it walked by.
If he makes it over to Humrock.
Yeah, I know.
He's
Trouble.
a pretty amazing bear.
I'm always amazed when we see deer over here, and we do.
Oh, you never know.
Nope.
And this is for 43 Watch Hill Drive. On June 7th, 2021, 5:30 p.m. the Town Hall, Situate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Situate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of the Inley School for work related to construction of a new parking area to support repurposing existing building as a preschool at dwelling location 43 Watch Hill Drive, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the virtual meeting will be available on the agenda posted on the town website. So we have
Sean Malone on the call, Frank,
okay.
from OCG.
Good evening.
Good evening, and let me start my video. Also with me is Donna Milani Luther, the head of school at Inley School, and if she may, she'd like to begin our presentation.
Sure.
Keep in mind, we're keeping things brief here, as brief as possible.
Yes. You want to take it away, Donna?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And I'll be very brief, I promise. Good evening, all. Thanks for hearing this evening. For those of you who may not be familiar with it, Inley is a preschool through grade 8 school, which sits on 10 acres here in Scituate. Essentially, we would like to repurpose an existing house and property into a preschool for our youngest students, ages 3 months through 3 years old. We'd like to create their own specially designed space, because over time we've found that children that age really need their own environment without the distraction of older students, which will best serve their developmental needs. And so now I'll turn it over to Sean. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Donna. So again, for the record, my name is Sean Malone. I'm a civil engineer with Oak Consulting Group. And to give a real brief overview of the site and the project, what we're looking at now is the existing conditions of the site. As Donna mentioned, there's a existing 4-bedroom dwelling on there, built probably 30 years ago or somewhere in that neighborhood. To the site is what you see is mostly lawn area till you get to the wetlands line to the page left. That's the kind of southwest side of the site. The overall site is 3 acres, and this wetland runs the entire length of the site from north to south, from Inley School property, which is the page top, all the way down to Cornet Stetson Road. This wetland it's a little bit unique here for this site, which actually is what brings us here for the most part, is there's kind of 2 wetlands. There's the sea wetlands, the sea flags, which is the main wetland of the area. It's draining from points north. There's also residential abutters over to the far page left to the west. And that's a fairly good size forested wetland. And then there's about a 15 or 20 foot gap of uplands, and then this B series and A series, which is really just kind of a drainage swale, maybe some breakout of groundwater, a remnant, I believe, of when the house was last constructed. Nonetheless, that A series line, the line closest to the building, is what we've been using to pull our buffers. And as you can see, a portion of the back of the house is within the 50-foot buffer, and the entire house is within the 100-foot buffer. There is a driveway from Watch Hill Road, and directly across the street from this site is the main Inley School property. Thank you. So this is the proposed site plan. The existing house will remain as is, with the exception of a kind of a farmer's porch put on the front of the building. Again, that is in the buffer zone. The reason for this farmer's porch is these are toddler classroom buildings, and each classroom needs to have direct access to the outside. So that'll be done on the farmer's porch, and then they'd be able to egress either to the north, which is a handicapped access, or the main stairs. The site will be accessed from Watch Hill Road in the northern end of the site, closest to the Inley School property to the north. We'll have a 20-foot wide one-way access road. Originally, we tried to do something a little smaller, but the fire department kind of came back and said they needed a 20-foot width. So that's why what we have here. That access from Watch Hill will then continue to the west in a counterclockwise fashion, as you can see with the directional arrows, where there'll be a drop off and bypass for the toddlers. We are showing 19 paved parking spaces. This is what is required by zoning and the planning board, and in fact that the planning board has given us a bit of relief to reduce this number. The way the bylaw is written, if you took the gross square footage of the building, including basement and a 3rd floor, this site would require, I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 parking spaces. So working with the planning board, they agreed and found a finding just looking at the first 2 floors, which will be occupied and used by the school. And so that's where we get our need of the 19 parking spaces. With this 19 parking spaces and the access drives, we're looking at approximately 10,000 square feet of impervious area added to the site. Yeah, it's a 3-acre site. About 20% of that is within the buffer zone, just to the north. We are not proposing any impervious area within the 50. All the impervious area would be between the 50 and 100. Can we flip to the next one, the C3 plan? Great, thank you. So with the added impervious area, obviously stormwater management becomes important. So we've designed a stormwater management system which meets both the Town of Scituate stormwater bylaws as well as the Mass DEP stormwater standards. We use a combination of kind of roadside swales, as you see kind of a stone swale in the middle of the site and along the parking areas, which would then drain to a stormwater treatment unit above, next to the building, next to the new porch, and then drain around to the north side of the building. That's approximately 20% of the new impervious area that's drained to that system. The majority of it is draining further to the south, where it's captured in a similar swale system, as well as a catch basin at the low point of the driveway exit egress to the bottom of the page. This is then piped to a subsurface detention area, and then routed through a stormwater treatment unit, and then routed to a subsurface infiltration area just below the existing building. We did a number of test pits. I think it was 4 test pits in April or May of this year. And we found that the soils are generally not very good in this area, very silty, very dense tills with high groundwater. I think, some of the till, it's just skirting on top of it. We did find an area that'd be suitable for infiltration down just below that garage area where we're showing the infiltration. And we do have the separation 3 feet or more to the seasonal high groundwater table that meets the town's regulation. So this system has been designed to treat the stormwater to achieve a 91% TSS removal overall for the site, as well as reduce the rate and volume of stormwater from the site. We do have an overflow on the infiltration system. So this is a perforated pipe system wrapped in stone, 24-inch pipe. Again, we couldn't have it too deep because of the groundwater concerns. And at the low end of the grade on this system, we'll have a clean out fitted with an open grate, like a catch basin grate or an area drain. So that would serve as the overflow for this site, which would then continue to the page left down the slope and into the wetlands area across the back lawn. We have, as part of our stormwater study, prepared and submitted a comprehensive operations and maintenance plan for inspection and maintenance of the system. And as I mentioned, we meet all the town regulations. This was peer reviewed with planning board and recently approved by the planning board. It was peer reviewed by Horsley Witten for the planning board, which did come back and determine that, yes, we did meet the applicable regulations. I don't know if they're on, so I don't want to speak for Janet if she is on. So I think with that, I guess the one other thing I should mention is if we flip to the last page in the set, the landscape plan. Oh, I'm sorry, second to last, one up, please. Thank you. So we are proposing there is one tree within the parking lot area, and the proposed trees do meet the town's requirement for parking trees. We do have a red maple that will be within the buffer zone in the upper part of the parking lot, and then some lawn area replacing the existing lawn, basically in front of the school within the buffer area. The thing I wanted to point out here is just to the south in what's labeled as the fence play area, is there's an existing row of pines there. Representatives of the school and the architect have met with the abutter just to the south there, number, was it 27 Watch Hill, I believe, and agreed, and I think it was a requirement of the planning board, to plant additional pine trees that will be within the 100-foot, or between the 50 and 100, additional pine trees to the west down the slope to help further screen that abutter below. I think that concludes my presentation, and love to answer any questions the commission may have.
Okay, thank you.
Andy?
I will pass for now.
Okay. Brendan?
I have no questions right now.
Richard?
No, I don't have any right now either.
Doug, are you in on this one?
Well, full disclosure, I think I can be. I'm not involved in this proposal whatsoever, but the underlying survey that you're looking at, the existing conditions, was done under my responsibility. If you look at the last sheet of the set, I signed that. I had not met the engineer who's presenting this or had any direct contact with him. I don't personally have any qualms at all about weighing in on this, and I don't think there should be a perceived conflict with me being involved. But if anyone else on the commission thinks I should step back, I will.
I think there's a fair amount going on around here, and I would appreciate your professional thoughts on it.
Okay, so my whole thoughts and questions around this whole thing, as it was being presented, was where's the water going to go? It's a pretty elaborate drainage system with lots of mitigation points in it. A lot of treatment is going on with this. I was glad to hear that it has been peer reviewed. You know, a catch basin in a low spot, I would imagine Horsley Witten looked at that. I think that even though that would affect the direct abutter the most, and they probably voiced that, as far as the commission goes, the way that the grading is, if there was a failure there, it would eventually make its way into the buffer zones. So I'm wondering if there is a drainage system management plan, a stormwater management plan involved in this project, if the planning board required that.
And would you like me to respond to that?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Yes. And yes, there was, as part of the stormwater study that was submitted and peer reviewed, we did have a stormwater system operation and maintenance plan that was part of the approved proceeding with the planning board and will be enforced as such. And that was also part of the submission to this commission. So any order of conditions would have that bound into it as well.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so that was going to be my follow-up question, is we would like that as part of our order of conditions as well, because it's obviously very important. It's the lion's share of what's going on here with a lot of new impervious material. But you know, definitely it's a nice project. The area obviously is in the right spot, and that's so. And you again, you just to reiterate, I think you said it's already been reviewed and accepted by Horsley Witten.
That's correct. Yeah, they issued a round of peer review comments approximately a month ago, which we did revise plans, added some information. They requested some additional details. That was resubmitted to the town, and then they reviewed that and confirmed that that does meet the applicable regs.
Okay, that is the basis, really the lion's share of any comments I would have. So that's glad. It's really glad to see that part's already been done.
Okay. Thank you. Amy? Oh, Penny, sorry.
Yeah, it's a shame you had to put all that parking in, but it's a school, so you had to. Other than that, I'm with Doug on that drainage and stuff, because that is a hill and it's going down to 123. So, okay, that's all. It's too
Amy?
bad.
Yeah, so like Sean said, this has been to the planning board. Planning board wrote a decision approving this project. DEP had no comments. It's a buffer project that, I mean, I did observe and think we should condition no disposal of grass clippings. There's quite a large grass clipping pile in the rear there. Definitely within the buffer. Did get stormwater review was performed and accepted. Our orders would incorporate the O&M plan and long-term pollution prevention plan for ongoing maintenance. And yeah, I think it's an improvable project.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience for this one?
Use the raise hand feature of Zoom.
So is there any, looking at this, the septic tanks in the backyard, does that mean that that's going to some sort of common field?
Yeah, so if we can go to the next page, the last page of the set, I can briefly describe the septic system for the
Yeah,
house.
real brief. I mean, I don't know
Real
you
brief.
to know a lot. I just
Yep, no
was
problem.
wondering where that
So
is.
the septic line comes out the back of the building, and the septic tank is there in the lawn. And then the pipe proceeds kind of straight down the page, past the abutting property, and the field is actually on the other side of the abutting property. There's an open grass right there. So that the field is actually 300 or 400 feet away from the house itself.
Let's see. Okay, thank you. I don't see that we have any more to consider on this. Anybody wants to make a motion? I'm good.
Motion to close
Could you also make a motion to issue, please?
and issue.
All right, that's Penny. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's Doug. All in favor? Richard?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank? Yes. Great. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, all. Have a great night.
You too. So 160 First Parish Road, we have a request to continue till July 19th. They're in the process of working with Brad Holmes to put together a planting plan. So
I make a motion to continue 150 First Parish to July 19th.
I'll second it. Richard?
thank you. All in favor? Doug?
Recused.
You reclused yourself, yeah. Jen?
Yep.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Thank you. 15 Gardner Road. On July 7th, 2021, during the 5:30 meeting at Town Hall, Situate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Steve and Diane Dutton for a determination of applicability of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Situate Wetlands Bylaw and Section 32050 for the Town of Situate Stormwater Bylaw for activities related to a single-family dwelling and clearing in the 100-foot buffer at property known as 15 Gardner Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. The information, the access to the virtual meeting is available on the agenda posted on the town website. So we have.
I'm trying to unmute either Greg Morse or James, but.
No, I'm here. Sorry about that.
Great.
Okay.
All right. So we're here tonight for an RDA associated with this new single-family dwelling at Lot 1 Gardner Road. So this is like I said, new building that will have a new septic system in the front yard. and drainage associated with this, being a crushed stone trench and dry well systems to the rear. So I know that this plan's been reviewed by Merrill, and we've addressed their comments in terms of stormwater. Bringing us here tonight in terms of the RDA is just some tree clearing to the rear of the site. And the thought process behind clearing back where we did was just that the woodland out at this site currently there's not really a lot of underbrush. It's tall oaks and pines. We wanted to give the applicant a large flat backyard and, you know, keep any trees as far back from the house as possible in the event of a storm, knocking those large trees towards the house. So that was our thought process in that. And yeah, with that, I will leave it to you for any comments.
So go back to Amy. Did you want to say something?
Me?
Amy?
Yeah, I can say something. It's hot in here. That's what I can say. But anyways, so, I mean, this is to you as a request for determination of applicability, but the bulk of the work and the review was pertaining to the new build and triggering of the Scituate stormwater bylaw. So I have Peter Palmieri from Merrill on the line here. You know, we can talk about that bylaw and how it meets that, but it's strictly for the Wetlands Protection Act. I mean, it appears to meet the requirements of a negative finding. I mean, I suppose you could question cutting in the 100 at all and the necessity of it. But I don't know, just some thoughts. And Peter, maybe you want to take it over?
Sure, Amy, thank you. Again, Peter Palmieri from Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors. We did review this project as far as the stormwater management, proposed stormwater management system. We submitted an initial review, and then we submitted a subsequent review based on the revisions they made in response to our initial review. And basically all our comments have been satisfactorily addressed. Similar to the last project we spoke about, we had requested soil testing at the location of the stormwater management system, and we asked for additional details on the plan, which they have provided. So again, in summary, we're satisfied with the plans as they stand now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So Richard? Richard must have gone out looking for the bear.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Frank. Pushed the wrong button here. What I said, I'll be very quick, was with the review by Merrill, I'm happy.
Okay, thank you. Doug, are you good on, can you comment on this?
Yeah, yeah, the only thing is I suppose I can't. I just wanted to point out that the plan that was emailed is slightly different than this one we're looking at. It has a proposed garage that was detached, and this one's attached. Actually, this drainage system, everything's kind of different. So I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Not sure what just making sure that you're looking at the most current and the correct one with an attached garage.
I'm looking at a detached garage, so thanks for that.
Amy, I've actually got that plan here. You want me to screen share? I can pull it up for everybody.
Sorry, James, we can't do that, but
I think we're okay. I mean, we
yeah,
have
I think it's, yeah.
I was looking at an earlier one that was sent out. We've got the correct one up on the screen. So we have the attached garage on the screen, so we're good. Thank you for that, Doug. It actually has a little bit bigger backyard. Okay, Penny?
Yeah, Amy, it might be hot, but you're not in my upstairs. You want to know what hot is.
Come on.
Anyways, no, I kind of like this, and I don't have a problem with the squaring off that back little corner into the 100.
Sorry to interrupt. I do believe that the detached garage is in fact the updated plan. It has a revision date of 5/25 on it, and that plan's dated 3/25.
Yeah.
So are they building something with a detached garage?
They are, yes.
All right.
Sorry, I didn't realize that that was the older plan that was up on the screen.
But the stormwater essentially remains the same.
Stormwater, yes, it's still, we've still gone through Merrill and satisfactorily addressed all of their comments, so.
Could Peter just double check, make sure that Peter's fine with that? Because it's got another system in the backyard of dry wells and chambers. So it's a different layout. Just make sure Peter's good with that he looked at the correct one too.
Are you still on, Peter?
Nope.
Okay, I think I'm on now. We did review the plan with the detached garage,
Okay.
and we're satisfied with that.
Thank you. Thanks, Doug. Jen?
Not yet.
Yeah, I think I'm okay for now. I am wondering about if there's a need for conservation markers or anything like that to prevent further encroachment, or if it feels pretty defined enough without them.
Point. Andy?
I'm okay.
Brendan?
I'm okay as well.
James, do you know if there's any plans for any additional clearing, or is that it?
No, that should be it at this time.
Okay. Amy?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point, Jen, and that there should be some permanent markers, kind of like Border Street along the 100, because as hard, as we try to monitor all these sites in town, it's really impossible. And then before you know it, they're going to want a pool, and they're going to want to push into the back corner. So just even as much as just knowledge that you need to file with us is helpful for owners, especially as they change hands and so on. But I mean, it meets requirements of a negative finding, and separately, there's a stormwater permit. It's probably really should have gone to planning board, but we have it, so I'm okay.
Andy?
I'm good.
Okay. Brendan?
Good.
Okay. So where would we put those markers? Along that tree line where it's in the 100-foot buffer? Put a couple of them in that corner.
Maybe just even some, if there's rocks in that area, maybe when they start digging, that's a good permanent marker rather than posts. Not everybody likes to look at those posts, but you could just line them along the 100 as a possible idea, or posts.
Well, they're clearing a little bit of an area in the 100. We said we were okay with that. So what I'm just wondering is if a couple of posts back at the tree line at the 100-foot buffer that just denotes that it's a buffer.
Yeah.
To a wetland in that area, I think would get the most attention.
But you're saying you like posts, Frank, not rocks?
Well, the rocks, I mean, anybody could put them across the back and then someone would move them. If there's a couple of posts in the back corner where we're inside that 100-foot buffer. So like the corner of the property where the tree line is and the erosion control, and then maybe another one where the 100-foot buffer intersects the tree line. So if you had a couple of posts protect, that's the area you want to protect. That's my own thought. Other than that, I don't have anything else. Do we have anybody in the audience? Yeah, anybody in the audience?
No raised hands.
I'll make a
Okay.
motion for -3.
Do we have a second?
Second, Andy.
For a second, so all in favor, Richard?
Yes.
Doug, were you gonna vote on this?
Suppose out of consistency, I should recuse since I did on the last one that Peter reviewed.
Yep. Jen?
Yep.
Brendan?
Yes.
And Frank, yes. Great. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
49 Lighthouse Road. On June 7, 2021, during the 5:30 meeting at the Town Hall, Situate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Mark Regan for a determination of applicability of Mass Wetlands Protection Act, the Situate Wetlands Bylaw, for activity related to converting a patio to a deck on property located known as 49 Lighthouse Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the virtual meeting will be available on the agenda posts on the town website. Good evening.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me okay?
Sure.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks for having me here. I am the property owner and the applicant. I'm partnering with Michael Ball on this project as well. So whoever controls the mute, it'd be great if you could unmute Michael as well so he can contribute if there's questions. If somebody can go forward, I don't know who's controlling the slides here. That's great. So my property, I have property on both sides. There's two parcels. When you're driving down Lighthouse Road, on the east side is where my house is. That's in the top portion of this, what you're seeing here on the right. And then across the street is a vacant lot. And that's the parcel that I'm talking about today. That vacant lot, the property has been disturbed. I bought the house about 4 years ago. There's a fence, you can see there's a fenced area and a grassy area across the street. That was all pre-existing when I bought the lot, the property. And there's also in the front of the property, as you get close to harbor, there's a stone and mortar patio. What that is a one-step up stone and mortar patio that I'm looking to replace with a deck, like a similar size and structure, but a one-step up deck. The benefit here would be, the stone and mortar is non-pervious, and the deck would allow pervious, so the water could run underneath it. It's really just a one-step up deck. It's going to be similar, not exactly the same, but similar in terms of height, size. The deck's going to be 15 by 20. And it's going to kind of reside where the same, pre-existing stone and mortar patio is today. And then what I wanted to do, we also, in reviewing this with Amy, she suggested to make sure that we check in with the building department, to make sure that they don't have any concerns with this project. And Michael did talk to the building commission, and they had no concerns from a FEMA building code perspective with the project. So that's a summary. Open up to any questions, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, great, thank you. Where was I on this one? I guess I'm going to roll with Doug on this one.
I was trying to find this on Google Earth while we're talking here, so I could get my orientation a little bit. But that seems pretty straightforward. You're going to be able to you're going to delete and remove all that old material from the patio. Is that correct? And then you're going to build a wood deck.
Yes, and so it'll be like, it has to be anchored, so there'll be like sonnet tubes like anchored into the ground. But yes, that is the plan, and we'll remove all that old material.
Is there a flood? There is a flood zone there, but is there an elevation you have to adhere to for a deck? I mean, it's not a major structure. I don't know if that
Not attached to that.
matters.
Right. And Michael, is he unmuted? Is Michael unmuted? Because he's talked to like Neil Duggan and others in the building department. So if he's unmuted, he can address that.
He appears to still be muted. I see here he goes.
Yeah, so good evening, everybody. I spoke in depth to Neil Duggan actually about it. I caught it when he was in the office one day. He considers this to be a more of a landscape feature, just because it is not an enclosed floor system. He said it did not need to meet a elevation requirement of FEMA.
Okay, yeah, that would be my only question. No other questions.
Okay. Penny?
Nope, enjoy your deck. I like it.
Jen?
I'm good.
Andy?
I'm good.
Brendan?
I was just, did you say if you're removing the existing?
Yes.
Okay, that's all. Thanks. Just one. Thanks. I'm good.
Richard?
I'm okay. I think I only have about 20 questions if you got a few minutes. No, I'm good.
Yeah. Jen Smith just stuck her pen in her ear.
The proposed bear cage.
Yeah.
Then he's gonna pass out.
We gotta get out of here. All right, Amy?
It's 100 degrees in my house.
It's nice 75 here.
I have to say, I don't really love this project, and I'm not really sure whether or not it's correct that it's not supposed to meet flood compliant standards under the Coastal Resource Building Code, but I do have a question out to FEMA. But if it is true, I mean, I suppose it would be approvable as a negative finding. I'm also not particularly happy with the lack of site plan too.
Lack of what, Amy?
Site plan?
Right.
Oh.
But anyways, I mean, I think we have bigger fish to fry, so you guys can decide, really.
Okay. You know what I realized? I jumped over 144 Hadley Road.
Yes. And I didn't dare interrupt.
We can go back to it.
Sorry, yeah. All right, do we have anybody in the audience for this?
No, it doesn't look like it, Frank.
Okay, so Mike, just your conversation with Neil, there's no distance that has to be maintained between the grade and the underside of the structure? Mike Ball?
Yeah, Frank, that is my understanding.
And so what is the distance? What's the roughly, what do you have for a space between your joists?
Our intention is to put the structure just that one step up. So it's going to sit essentially on those concrete piers. My plan was to use precast footings.
Yeah.
Just get them in, get them quick, get them done quick, and then just sit right on top. The way the structure's set up, we would do a double 2x8 joist and then flush frame with stainless connectors to mitigate any corrosion issues. We don't want this thing coming apart later on down the line.
Okay. So this is just a deck with a rail, or just a platform with decking?
Just a platform. Yeah, it's a one step.
Okay. All right. I don't have any more questions. I'll take a motion.
Motion for -3.
In a second,
I'll second that.
that was Doug. All in favor, Richard,
Yes.
Jen,
Yep.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Good strategy to put it on at the end of a hot evening.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I've been here since 5:30 too. I don't.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
have a good night. 144 Hadley, do we still have anybody on for that? I
No,
apologize.
they're going to continue until
know that?
July. So I'm making a motion for 144 Hadley to continue to July 19th.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Doug,
Yes.
Jen,
Yep.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank, yes. And Amy, maybe by then we'll have some information on the catch basins and the rest of the
Yeah.
equipment there.
We hope.
Okay. All right. I'm not gonna linger here. Tomorrow night, we're gonna be discussing with the selectmen the possibility of scouts camping somewhere on town property. We've had dialogue back and forth with the scouts, and I would maybe be better just to discuss this individually if anybody's got any thoughts. We're still in the process of trying to come up with something based on the request from Troop 7 to have a place where they can do some camping this summer, and wanted to run it up the flagpole with the selectmen to see if there were any issues. We still don't have a location or scope of what they want to do exactly, but want to see if the selectmen are in agreement and conceptually with that. The other thing is we got our first run at our forestry plan, and I'll get that emailed out to all of you, along with Phil Benjamin's notes on what to really read. If you guys could start to think about this, we have to respond with some comments at some point. Andy, I got a couple of names for you for wells, and I'll give you a call on that one.
Great.
And Amy, do we know what the deal is? I saw some note with the open meeting rule, but are we going to be able to continue to vote to meet remotely until the fall?
As of right now, we're in person starting the 21st, but that could change this week. So it's a moving target.
Okay.
Oh,
June 21st?
Yep.
Okay, I thought I saw something come off that they continued or extended that to September. I
They
misread
are
that then.
proposing to extend it till
Ah,
September, but that legislation has not been signed by Baker.
It hasn't been approved by the legislature yet.
I suspect we might hear something by the end of the week.
Yeah.
I mean, so at this point,
Okay.
we'd advise
We don't
everybody
need
to
this.
look
Stay
at
tuned.
the agenda when it's posted right before it's posted Thursday before the meeting. And the information will be out there as far
Okay.
as in person or remote, but it's pretty important to know,
Yep.
for everybody. In fact, that brings up, meeting time.
All right, let's discuss that when we know what the situation is.
Okay.
Okay, we have anything else to vote? Orders and conditions for 60 Driftway?
I make a motion, we accept the orders of condition for 60 Driftway as written.
Second.
All in favor? Richard?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Awesome. Anything else?
No, I'm gonna go.
Penny, go downstairs.
I am.
Get some
Goodbye.
water. All right, you guys, thanks for bearing with us this evening.
Good night, guys.
Stay cool. Have a good night. Go look for the bear.
Yep. No, not showing up yet.
All right. Good night.
Good night, guys.
All right.